Los Angeles autograph signing event. Two young guys from Holland made a decision to come and see me, and I've become very good friends with these young guys. They're great friends. One of them sent me an email and was very concerned over the remarks that Chris Jericho had made about me in his book, and asked me what my thoughts were about Jericho's remarks about me. And I want to read the actual email that I sent back to my friend in Denmark. And I said, I hope I didn't offend Jericho. Jericho was concerned that he was not asked to be the director of the funeral, of Eddie Guerrero's funeral, that he felt that he should have been asked to be the director of the funeral service because he was Eddie Guerrero's favorite friend and his best friend, and that he felt he was slighted. And so I was unaware of the animosity of Jericho, so he asked me to respond to Jericho's opinion about me being selected instead of him. And this is what I wrote back. I think this is very important for the fans to hear. I hope I didn't offend Jericho, but I was asked personally by Eddie's wife, Vicky, to conduct the service. I believe Vicky was aware that Eddie and I had a special spiritual connection. And it could have also been as simple as me living in the same city as Eddie had just moved to, Phoenix, Arizona, along with our spiritual relationship. Eddie had undergone a tremendous spiritual rebirth with his own personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I was able to go into their newly purchased home and sit with Vicky at their dining room table and discuss things face to face with her, and also physically go to the funeral home here in Phoenix and discuss things with the director of the funeral home. And Eddie had mentioned to me and Valerie, my wife, how excited he was to be moving to Phoenix. It will be living just a few miles apart. Plus, Vicky didn't have much time to think about who was going to do what, when, and where. But I do believe being close friends to Eddie on a spiritual level and being so close by, just miles apart, she would call and I could be and was in fact sitting with her at her dining room table. The newly purchased home that they had just bought barely a few weeks before Eddie passed was still full of unpacked boxes of stuff that both extended family members were going through and helping Vicky unpack. Photographs were still on the floor, waiting to be hung. Valerie and I were in her home speaking with Vicky while Eddie was in a morgue back east. I believe it was Detroit. Chris Jericho may not, and I'm positive he is not taking all of these things into consideration that I've just mentioned to you. Vicky was under tremendous amount of stress and pressure. Her husband had just passed away, and she had a funeral to organize. So that was my comments before I knew the extent of the viciousness of Jericho's comments in his book. And he had made the comment in his book that he felt that he should have been picked as the director of the funeral service because he was Eddie Guerrero's best friend. And as I just mentioned, Vicky really didn't have time to start picking out who was going to be the best friend and who should be selected out of ratings of friendship to conduct the funeral. The man had to be buried within a matter of days. He says that the several has-beens came forth and spoke to the media in an attempt to get attention back into the public's eye, basically to put themselves over. Billy Graham, Jim Hellwig, Deborah Marshall are charlatans who had nothing meaningful to say, and that each one was more inane and inept than the last as they made an appearance on news and talk shows across the country. First of all, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit murdered a child. He strangled a 7-year-old little boy to death and killed his wife and then hung himself over a 3-day period of time. It was the slaughter and murder of the innocent. And you said that I had nothing meaningful to say when I was on national television. As it turned out, this murder led to numerous media accounts and a federal investigation into steroid abuse, which I'm an expert at since I started using steroids in 1966. And steroid abuse in professional wrestling, this triggered a federal investigation. For your information, Jericho, after I appeared on the Katie Couric National News, NBC National News, putting distance between the WWE and the use of steroids and the Chris Benoit murder-suicide, I received an hour later a personal phone call from the WWE offices, and it was from the office of Linda McMahon. And the young lady on the phone says, Superstar, Linda McMahon would like to say a few words to you. Well, guess what, Jericho? Linda McMahon thanked me personally for being on national television and putting distance between the murder and the slaughter of the innocent and steroids and the WWE. And you said that I was nothing but a charlatan who had nothing meaningful to say about this incident. So I submit to the fans of professional wrestling, and you make the decision. Is Jericho correct that I had nothing meaningful to say, that I'm just a has-been and had no business on television? Or do you take Linda McMahon's personal phone call to me saying and thanking me for stepping up and being a man and telling it like it is and defending the WWE and defending the use of steroids in connection with this murder, suicide, despicable act by Chris Benoit?
Did you ever wrestle Chris Jericho in WCW?
Yes.
How did you get along with him?
He was really upset he had to lose to me. Asheville, North Carolina. I'm here in Atlantic City. I'm not sure it was Nitro or not. It was Nitro, I think, because I don't think Thunder was happened yet because it was early. And they really was leaning toward that word, the lion heart. Probably that. They were pushing that word a lot, more than Chris Jericho word. And I'm about Bagwell, so he's going to put me over. Of course, I come out, but and as soon as he lock up, I can see that he's going to be a little bit stiff, and he's not happy with the situation. I already knew he wasn't happy with it by going over the match backstage. But I was ready to do whatever needed to be done, But he just made it hard. He made the match hard. And instead of just doing your job and realizing I got to do this again 4 times a week, can we not just dance here? Let's dance and put on performance that everybody is entertained and let it go, But it was like a real fight. It was like, God dang, you gotta be kidding. But Chris is a good guy though, man. He's always good to me. And I never ever say anything bad about Chris, except I remember that night he definitely didn't want to lose. veterans.
He wanted to set up this thing where Goldberg was going to spear him out of his wrestling boots. He wanted to get Goldberg over. And Goldberg at the time, and I'm glad for Bill that he's doing so well, and Bill's a super nice guy. But Bill had a million. He was what they wanted Eric Watts to be. What Bill wanted Eric Watts to be. Go to 0 and 100, from 0 to 100 in months, if not weeks. And he just caught fire, and he had so many voices in his ear. Do this, do this, do this. Don't do this, don't do this. And here's a guy that really doesn't have a lot of experience, and all these veterans are telling him all these different things. So I think that he started getting very. He didn't like. I think he started trying to just not listen to all these ideas because they were confusing with him. Well, Chris was trying to start this little mini blow-off feud where eventually he would literally spear him out of his boots. Chris was going to kick off his boots, and Bill didn't think that Chris was at the level that deserved that kind of push, to even go back and forth with him on a microphone. Chris got annoyed, and I think when Chris went to WWF and he finally gained the credibility that he gained, and if Goldberg came in back then with an attitude, I think Chris said, you know what, you might have been able to get away with it then, but we aren't going to do this again.
After 2 years, I got my first trip to Japan, and then
Who was that for in Japan?
for WAR, and that's where I met for the first time Chris Jericho.
And what was your best match with Chris Jericho?
All of them. I enjoy all of them.
And favorite match?
Memorable match. The one with the mask when I lost the mask. Yeah.
That must have hurt you in some way, having to take that mask off at that moment.
I guess so, yeah, in a way, yeah.
Did that take a lot of convincing for them to do? To have to finally take off your mask?
I was on a contract, so I couldn't, I could, but I didn't. And because I think, because I think I was very, very young. I was just happy to be in the park and play with the boys, I didn't want to bitch around. I just want to have fun. So I was like, okay, and maybe they took advantage.
Jericho's like the progression of Benoit to me. He kept the Hart name alive, even though Jericho, and we know this between us, is he gives the Harts a lot more credit than they deserve for what he did. And it's nice of him because he was from that area, from Calgary, and he makes us sound like we were successful trainers. But Jericho did that on his own fucking hard work and innovation. Jericho was always so nice to me, and Benoit was always so nice to me. So those are guys that just, for whatever class acts outside the ring, Jericho was the only guy to ever get me a booking and get me on that, I forget what the show was called, Velocity, and got me paid up front and took me to the bar and bought me drinks and was nice to me as a human being. And every time I've ever seen him did the podcast, let me just go on a tear, didn't try talking a bunch of shit or bringing up a lot of stupid questions. And just every time I ever called him on the phone, he answered the phone and had time for me no matter how busy he was. And I heard the same thing for David Benoit, Chris Benoit's son, that Jericho's taken him under his wing and helped him out and talked to him, and just as two of my favorite guys in wrestling that were nice to me outside the ring and helped me feel important and didn't make me stand at the fucking door like a mark with my bag in my hand like some piece of shit desperate to get a job, because I never asked for a job in WWE and I've never sent a video in once, and I always said the same thing. I've been trying to shy away. You haven't seen too many times where I'm hovering in the back trying to get Tyson Kidd to introduce me to Vince, or trying to get free tickets so I can go hang out and meet some of the guys that I used to train with in the back, and hey, can you get me in now and you get me a job, or go show up at NXT with my bag and maybe try to manipulate some situation where I can get them to look at me. If you don't know who I am or where I'm at and I gotta send you a bunch of videos and beg for a job, it's probably not gonna happen.
For a while there was some heat between you and Chris Jericho. Just quickly, that's all over with now, right?
Did I what?
You don't hold any heat towards Chris Jericho anymore, do you?
Oh, no. Chris Jericho, I'll never forget when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. In the back, as we were lined up ready to go out, Chris Jericho, I don't know how it started, I don't even know what the word is, disagreements that we supposedly had, how that
I think it was something he wrote in his book that maybe wasn't entirely true, and you took offense to it, but you were going through some rough times at that time as well. And
I see. Okay, that's right. So it was something he wrote in his book. Okay.
Yeah.
And so anyway, backstage at the Hall of Fame, when I was being inducted by Triple H, thank you, Triple H. It was a great induction, by the way. It was an honor to have you induct me into the WWF Hall of Fame. So anyway, Chris Jericho came over to me backstage, and I was sitting down while we were waiting to go out on the platform, and said, "Hey, superstar," he says, I just want to apologize for anything that I may have said, or, I said, "Hey, brother, don't worry about it, man." I said, "I say things that I should have never said so many times." I said, "Man, let's just bury that hatchet right now. Right now." I got up, shook his hand, gave him a big hug, and I think he's a great guy. You're a great guy, Chris Jericho, if you hear this.
As far as Chris Jericho goes, I've only had 2 interactions with him. One in 2004, backstage at a WWE Raw taping in Calgary. All it basically was a handshake. I was hanging around with, I believe, Harry and possibly TJ and Ted, and Jericho walked in. He was more interested in talking to them as he knew them. That was my only interaction there. Then in 2009, I attended an FCW WWE camp that I was ultimately hired from before they rescinded my contract. And he actually showed up on the same day that I got into a bit of an altercation in the camp because I was in the ring with someone that wasn't trained properly, and he was basically punching me for real in the match. And for a point in the match, he hit me so hard I lost my hearing. So after the match, I kind of snapped off on him and challenged him to a fight. And I remember Jericho gave everyone a speech later in the day, and although he wasn't there for my altercation, he did mention something in his speech about keeping calm in the ring. But again, that's neither here nor there. I do respect Chris Jericho's decision to not re-sign with WWE and help out a new company, and also help out New Japan, try and break up this monopoly in wrestling. A lot of people said he took the look that I was doing as Hannibal the Death Dealer with the spiked jacket, the top hat, the Alice Cooper style makeup on the eyes. Billy Graham gave me the idea for that look when he told me to come back as Hannibal the Death Dealer after I had basically been retired for 3 years from wrestling to combat a severe health condition I had, and became close with Billy Graham, and he helped me come back with a different look. So I'd been doing that look since 2014. I don't know when he started it, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not wrestling anymore. The only issue I ever had with Chris Jericho is in his second book. I actually read both of his books. I really enjoyed his first book. The issue I had with the second book was he took shots at both Billy Graham and Jacques Rougeau. Jacques Rougeau was one of my trainers. Billy Graham helped me out a lot in my life. He's a really good-hearted person. He's a guy that actually coined the phrase superstar for a wrestler. He holds the record for most consecutive MSG main event sellouts, 19 out of 20. He was copied by Hulk Hogan. Ric Flair admittedly took elements of Billy's gimmick. Jesse Ventura admitted it. Scott Steiner has admitted it. He coined the term brother in wrestling that everyone uses. He took that from his ministry days. He's just a great guy. There was some heat, as Billy explained earlier in this video, due to Vicky Guerrero putting Graham in charge of Eddie Guerrero's funeral. And then, of course, Jericho was close with Chris Benoit, and he had some issues over some comments Billy Graham said related to that death, and I'm not even going to get into that. Obviously, they were close friends, and he's always going to support his close friends. So what really won me over with Jericho was last year he donated $1,500 towards Billy's medical GoFundMe, which Billy Graham still has going if anyone wants to help him out. But he won me over with that. Thanks a lot, Chris, for helping Billy Graham with that. And I have nothing against you. I know by doing that, you pretty much made amends with Billy over what was said in the book, and Billy doesn't hold anything against you for that. Even before you donated to him, he was over it. So I understand why it hurt him at the time. He was going through a really rough period too. And then to read that and have fans bringing it up to him when he was still doing conventions really bothered him.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.